Hi everyone, I'm Shelly and you're watching There's No Place Like Home. I know I haven't done a video in a while between the election and a bunch of appointments that I had. I just never got around to recording anything, but I just wanted to share some encouragement with you today. Just, a very short video because I know that a lot of times we as parents, especially we as conservative Christian parents, can feel very nervous about sending our kids away to college just because we know of the leftist indoctrination that they will probably be receiving there. So I wanted to tell you this. College made my son more conservative. Okay, so I have to begin this video with pointing out that my oldest son, who I'm referring to today, he was actually only homeschooled for 2 years. He was homeschooled for 9th and 10th grade. And that was when I kind of burned out and sent the kids back to school for those 2 years. So then he did end up graduating from public high school. And so my son, he ended up growing up having a much more liberal attitude than what I was really happy with. And it's something that I think a lot of Christian parents, we deal with it and we worry about it, and a lot of times we think that we're doing something wrong if our kids don't automatically take over all of the values that we're trying to instill in them. And I think it's one of the hardest things as parents that we have to understand is that we have to let our kids find their own faith, and we have to let our kids find their own values, and we can do everything that we possibly can as parents to bring them up the way that we know that God wants us to. But in the end, it has to be our kid's decision. So my son, great kid, and he never had like these off the wall beliefs that you see nowadays. It was never to that extent, but nevertheless it was still a little bit more liberal for my liking. But when he went away to college, he ended up, and I had noticed this over time, that he seemed to be getting more and more and more conservative as time went on. And so now this is several years later, and my son, he comes over once a week to have dinner with us. And the one night we were talking, and we started talking about college, and I started talking about the leftist indoctrination that is going on at a lot of these colleges, most colleges. And he actually told me something that made me very encouraged, because I think that when I tell you, it's going to help you to understand that not everything is at a loss when we send our kids away to these colleges. Because what he told me was this: going to college made me even more conservative. And I said to him, "What do you mean? How did it make you more conservative?" Because I knew for a fact that he did not have conservative teachers. I knew that the fellow students there were not conservative, because we used to talk and he used to tell me about what he was learning about, or other, kids that were in the classes with him. Well, I shouldn't say kids, but young adults. But anyway, and what he said to me was that over time, he began to see more clearly how just the behavior of the students there and the teachers, the attitudes that they had, just the way that they would constantly repeat information, and just repeat talking points, the way that they had no self-respect for themselves, the way that they didn't seem to respect anyone else, and the way that they seemed to just be afraid of everything, afraid of being offended, afraid of offending someone else. And he said to me that it just got to the point where he didn't even really want to associate with any of the kids at his college, because he said, "Mom," he said, "you don't understand how hard it is to be someone my age nowadays, because I can't find anyone else who has values like I do." And that just really hit me, because if you would have asked me this 10 years ago, I would have thought he would have never said something like that to me. But I think what we need to realize is that I mentioned before that as parents, we can do what we can to bring our children up, to raise our children with our own values. And our kids do have to eventually decide whether to embrace or discard those values. And they have to, just make that decision on their own. But as we're raising up our children, I think that one of the best things that we can teach our children is to think for themselves. Because in the process of thinking for themselves, I've realized that kids end up having another quality. People who can think for themselves tend to be leaders and not followers. The problem with the school system and the problem with kids in college and with so many other people, even adults that you see nowadays, is that they are followers. They were never taught to think for themselves. They were never taught to research things, like actually research, and not just like looking right at the mainstream media and thinking that would give them all the answers that they needed. But what they do is they just look to these talking points that they receive from others. They look to these authority figures that they look up to, and they completely accept anything that they're told. Whereas those kids or those people who were taught to question things, who were taught to be able to look into things themselves, there goes my mouse again, who were taught to look into things themselves, they're the ones who are more likely to be leaders. They're the ones who are less likely to follow what everyone else is doing. And yeah, eventually those are very often the ones who realize, hey, all that stuff that I thought growing up was cool really wasn't. So that's all that I have for you today. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet and would like to hear more of what I have to say, I would love if you would do that. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave one over on Instagram because YouTube disables my comments. And if you like my work and would like to check out my Patreon page, I will leave a link in the description box for that as well. And I hope you have a great day.